The Restoration Trust is a small charity, and we work with people who are living with mental health challenges, and we involve them in heritage and creativity. So the University of East Anglia asked us to work with them to bring people who have got mental health challenges into their excavation that they were doing at Warham Camp.
The excavation at Warham Camp is exploring the Iron Age Fort itself, which is one of the best preserved prehistoric monuments in this part of the world. So the big questions that we had were what was going on in the interior, what kind of activities were happening, and what's the date of the fort. And we think that we've got the evidence now to answer both those questions.
Well, I've been involved with the Restoration Trust since 2019. I started off as a participant actually. I was intrigued by the Restoration Trust because of the heritage angle. Got myself invited along to one of the meetings and it sort of went from there really.
I think one of the things about living with mental health problems is that you are quite excluded from a lot of what goes on. So I think that being included in things like the excavation at Warham Camp sort of helps you feel like a part of the world and a part of your community and a part of society. It's a place to make friends, it's a place to do something interesting, and it's just good for you.
But the great thing about archaeology is it's a kind of leveller. So like despite all these disparate groups, because they were digging 24 pits on the site, everyone just slotted together and worked together, and it was brilliant. A typical day working on a project, I was specifically here to do photography, interview people, and to sketch what was going on as well. The students would go off and join a team working on a site, and I'd just busy myself working, either taking photos, sketching, or interviewing people, and work on into the afternoon. I mean, the nominal time for finishing was about 3 o'clock, but because everyone was so into it, often it went on much later than that.
Rob is brilliant. We worked together first at Arming Hall, and he produced some amazing photography. After that, we worked together on a book. And so it was, Rob was a sort of central part of the Warham project. We really wanted him to be at the centre of it in terms of the creative outputs. And he's been fantastic, very prolific. But he also has acted as a sort of central point for other people's work. So he's photographed the drawings and paintings that other people have done too.
He's become our lead graphic designer. He's been with us in making films. He's been part of other projects, and he's also a member of our expert advisory board.
Yeah, my own mental health challenge, I mean, for years I'd sort of suffered with depression, but hadn't been diagnosed as bipolar until 2009. And once I was, I took medication to kind of keep the mood stable. They're better than they were, but I still get sort of ups and downs, you know. And when I was going through one of those downs, that's when I got in touch with the Restoration Trust, really. I mean, it certainly helped me personally, if not professionally, because I've rediscovered a love of drawing, love of photography, which I didn't know I had, and to the point where I'm kind of the semi-official photographer. I'm also a journalist, so I was quite delighted to be able to use my skills for something, you know, that everyone's going to benefit from. Maybe for the first time in my life, I don't want to over-dramatise, I've got a certain feeling of, you know, real feeling of personal fulfilment and satisfaction.
Rob's become much more focused on his art, and I think his confidence has grown, and he's become a valued colleague.
The whole environment was constructed, if you like, to encourage and stimulate imagination and cooperation and experience of things you hadn't done before, discovering new skills, which are all good things if you suffer from depression. So in a way, the kind of like support was built in. You know, for example, if I had had a bad day or whatever, there was always a Restoration Trust facilitator on site. So if I had issues, I could go to him. As it turned out, it wasn't necessary because the whole experience was like, you know, a nurturing experience, a healing experience, if you like. Yeah.
I mean, the kind of changes that we saw in Rob is about participation, I think, about that feeling of belonging and entitlement. But he is a really good artist, and he's a good photographer, a good filmmaker, and he's produced lovely books for us. And I think that's what it's been really about for him, is exploring his own creativity.
It's given me an appreciation of local history and culture. So you find yourself looking at the landscape in different ways and thinking, oh, what went on there? It's a social experience as well as a working experience. So I would say it's enriched it about easily 100%.
I mean, the Restoration Trust is a tiny charity and we're dependent on grant funding and also more and more now on income that we can generate ourselves through social entrepreneurship. So we're absolutely dependent on external funding.
We're going to try and continue the project. We need to go for another block of funding. We're definitely going to be talking to the Restoration Trust about how they can be involved in the next steps.
Well, my future plans of volunteering are just to carry on. We did a book about Arming Hall last year, which incorporated creative responses from a lot of the people who attended. We're going to do the same thing again this year, but the book will be slightly bigger, which is quite sort of flattering. And on top of that, we're hoping to stage an exhibition. The drawings I started doing last year, and it's kind of spread and it's just taken off, and it's like people seem to like them, and I've actually managed to sell a few, so I'm very grateful for it, because it's also, in terms of day to day, if I can sit down and do a drawing, you know, that's very good mental well-being. So I just hope to proceed along that route and be hopefully a better professional and a better person.
My favourite thing about working at Warham Camp was the beauty of the place and the fact that it kind of acted as a wonderful social environment. So it's almost like a social amphitheatre, if you like.
My favourite thing about working with the Restoration Trust, I suppose it's really, you know, meeting someone like Rob and putting all these bits of a jigsaw together to do something which maybe nobody thought was going to happen. Something beautiful and interesting.
I'm tempted to say Fish and Chip Friday, but I probably shouldn't. Actually, the favourite thing, just being away and being in this kind of like wonderful bubble, if you like, and sort of getting to know some different people and people who were equally inspired by what we were doing. You know, it was a wonderful learning experience. I learned a lot about myself, I suppose. I did go away a better person and a more empathic person, which means basically Restoration Trust has done its job, you know, because that's kind of what we aim for.